The Villain's Demand reviews Thor, Ragnarok, an Avengers Disassembled tie-in, written by Michael Oeming and pencils by Andrea DeVito.
Hey guys, this is The Villain's Demand. I'm Evan the Great. This is Justin Von Doom, and this is Hero Man. Today we're going to bring you another comic book review. It's over Thor Disassembled, Thor Volume 2, issues 80 through 85.
This book starts off, the overview of it is Thor comes back to Asgard. He's been on Earth for years, and a lot of people on Asgard thought he was dead. He comes back to Asgard to find out that Asgard's been attacked. Loki's running. He has actually a group. He has the Fenris Wolf and a couple other people with him. And
Mjolnir and Ulick.
Yeah, Ulick. And they're wreaking havoc on Asgard. During all this, you find out that they've built hammers. They're not quite as powerful as Thor's hammer, but he's equipped his army with hammers. That's why they're able to do this. They're destroying all this. Throughout the book, you find out that Ragnarok's actually happening. And Thor realizing that Ragnarok's happening, which is the death of the gods. It's just an endless cycle. He tells Captain America and Iron Man, who he originally brung there, he tells them to go home. It's not their place to die in Asgard. They're not of that land. Go home and protect Earth. So once he figures this out, he gets his group together and he lets them know that he needs to leave for a while because he needs to try to get true knowledge because of Ragnarok. And then you get to see Thor walk the path of his father Odin, what his father had to do. And he does all this. And he gets all this knowledge and just different stuff, and then Thor comes back and he's actually able to turn the tide and overthrow the last Ragnarok and end it. That way it's not a cycle and it's not basically a rewipe, and it's such a good book. I mean, I recommend it. It's the first time I've ever read it. I didn't read it when we read the Avengers Disassembled, and I came back and I read this, and it's one book I regret not reading. It is that good.
Oh, this book is excellent. We're big fantasy RPG players, and if you wanted to write a story for your character and a way to have it in, man, would this be awesome. As we talked about before when we covered Avengers Disassembled, that was a jumping point for us big time on comics. A friend of ours had this book. I'd never read it. The only thing I'd ever read that tied into Avengers Disassembled was Spider-Man. And going through, I've read some of the other ones. None of them really tie into the book. You know how Marvel goes with tie-ins and whatnot. I'd be like, oh, you know, this simple tie-in has nothing to do with it. Spider-Man, like I said, has something to do with the big spider, plays in Spider Island. But this story, the reason we want to cover it, because it makes sense for Avengers Disassembled. The part of Avengers Disassembled where someone literally asks, where's Thor? And no one gets an answer. So, with that, I assume that this book takes place before the Avengers Mansion blows up. Because as Hero Man mentioned in the breakdown, Thor finds out that Loki and them have found the mold that Mjolnir was forged in, and they're going to make hammers. That way, Loki can take over Asgard. Being in trouble, not wanting to meet his death, Thor teleports himself and what apparently is the Midgard serpent to Earth, where there's a fire burning down a building, and Captain America and Iron Man are saving children. They go with him. They battle Loki, Hymir, Ulick, and Fenris. They win. They stop them. And then Thor begins to tell them about Ragnarok, what's going on. They want to help, and he tells them, no, you need to defend Earth. And later on, Beta Ray Bill shows up, which is completely kick-ass what he does. We'll get to that when we get there. But that and what happens with Beta Ray Bill shows you how much this means to Thor. That he knows this is his own battle. He's been waiting for this. He's dealt with it for millennia now. And it comes to I'm really glad that we decided to read this, because this book is beautiful. I mean, from start to finish, unlike Avengers Disassembled, where in the beginning, you know it's going to be epic. You read this, and you're thinking maybe you're just reading a Thor story, and then once it hits the point where you know what's going to happen, it's completely epic. I mean, from start to finish, I would recommend reading this before I even read Disassembled. I wouldn't even read Disassembled if I knew this book was what this book was back in 2004. It is just great. After this, I'd started reading Thor books. There's a lot of one-shots like Blood Oath, Blood and Thunder, and then when Thor comes back, I mean, this is a big book for Marvel because Thor was gone for years from comics, and then he didn't show up till after Civil War. I mean, they tricked you with Ragnarok clone and whatnot, but there's a bunch of Thor books after this that are one-shots that I'd read, and I'd read those, and I hadn't read this, and then they made so much sense to me because when we'll get into these books, to me, were the reason Thor brought Ragnarok in this book. And you get a chance, just read it. Like we all agree, it's just epic. It's beautifully written, great story.
It has so many good parts to it. It's almost like it's most of the time you got a story. It's like it goes through and it just builds up. This does that, but it also is like they took a little bit of this, boom, a little bit of that, and then built it with adding different layers of it. Each layer that just kept getting bigger and bigger. And we'll break it down of what I'm talking about. But like when Captain America and Iron Man are there, one of my favorite scenes is where like Cap is fighting the Fenris Wolf, and you're getting to see like his skill there and he don't care. I mean, they're kind of outmatched, but they're there with Thor, and they when they win, it's awesome the way that Cap, he throws his shield in Fenris Wolf's mouth. That's one of my favorite. I love the way that was drawn, and it was drawn in the way to where you can almost see that how long Thor's been gone. He works with these as well as he would work with his Asgardian warriors, like the Warriors 3 and Sif, and it was a fact that kind of showed you how long he was actually gone. And for them to beat him, and then once Thor finds out what's going on, it was kind of sad a little bit, but at the same time it was like it made me love Thor that much more. The fact that he's just going to tell these guys, he's like, no, y'all guys are going, this is my battle. He don't want anybody else to get slain or any of that while he's progressing on his journey.
It shows you how selfless he is.
Yes,
Even being a god and these being mortal men, it's beautiful because it shows you how selfless he is. And how much he cares for others and not of himself.
Oh yeah. And after I read this series, it showed you not only how selfish Thor is. Thor, I mean, a lot of people say, oh, he can only do that. He's only doing that because he's a god. No, he does stuff in this book that's like, man, that dude, how would I live like that, And we'll talk about it as we get further in. But after he lets them go, Loki is starting to grow in more power and different things, and he's got the Fenris Wolf and Ulick, and they're starting to rampage in Asgard. And then they're later on, there's a scene that is when they're fighting, and Thor is just basically getting beat down, and he's trying everything he can. I think that's when the Warriors, whenever Volstagg shows up and tells him that Loki killed Hogan, and what's the other one's name?
Oh, Andrel?
Yeah, he tells him that they're both dead, and then he's got Volstagg there, and then you find out Sif's with him, and he starts building a little group there, and then there comes a point where he's going to tell them, hey, this is my fight, and then I can't remember what part it is. Who's he fighting right before the Fenris Wolf, and then he's going to fight him, and that's when Beta Ray shows up.
He is. Oh, they're fighting.
I can't remember what they're
Big giant.
Rock.
Yeah, they're fighting that.
Yeah.
And Thor is just going all out, and he's about out of energy. And then here's Fenris Wolf again. And at that point, I wouldn't say it's my favorite part, but it's probably my second favorite part of the story is when Beta Ray Bill shows up out of nowhere and just blasts this dude and fries his skin off and just beats him to death. And it just shows you how powerful Beta Ray Bill is. And in my mind, Beta Ray Bill is one of my favorite characters of all time because, as me and Hero Man was talking, it's almost like Beta Ray Bill is a more violent Thor. And I don't know if y'all guys get that when you read it, but I sure do. And it was just a great moment in the book to see Beta Ray Bill step in and do something like that. And it's almost like, yeah, they got it now. And then he tells Beta Ray Bill to watch everybody as he goes, to get the runes.
Makes Beta Ray Bill king of Asgard.
Yes.
Let's not forget, when he's doing all this beatdown, his hammer's broken.
Oh
yeah.
I forgot about
This is with his
describe that part.
When he first comes to Asgard, he's stripped of the Odin Force, which it doesn't really describe how he got the Odin Force. But talking to Evan the Great, we kind of think that because he was on Earth, and then he all of a sudden was endowed with the Odin Force, which he knew his father probably passed away. It's kind of what we were putting
Odin's
together.
in the Odin sleep.
Yeah. So,
no, he's dead.
Yeah, he died.
He fighting Surtur, yeah.
And that's how we believe he found out. So he comes to Asgard and he's stripped of the Odin force as soon as he gets here. Asgard's destroyed. They fight the Fenris Wolf with all that. With them all having hammers too, which he has brass knuckle hammers, which is really cool. They all collide at once and it shatters Thor's hammer. And they ended up defeating him, and a little boy shows up. He takes that little boy under his wing, and like he's raising him like his own son.
Don't they find him in the rubble?
Yeah, he's in the rubble, and you see the boy a couple times, but Thor don't have a hammer. And reason I like this book is it made me want to go like save kids out of a burning building. It gave me that will, like, just because to see him do stuff. It was like this book took something that was epic and they put it in like the first couple pages. You know, he loses his hammer. You're like, I didn't even know that could happen. And then you get to see how good of a fighter he is with his hands, Thor, and he beats the crap out of him. And then you're like, oh, you know, this is epic. And then you get to see him go from that point to where Evan the Great was talking about, where he's fighting the big mute guy, and he's like, we're an even match even when I had my hammer. It'll take everything. And he destroys that dude. And he's beat down, he's hurt, and you can tell. And the Fenris Wolf shows back up. He's bigger than ever, badder than ever. And you wouldn't think, and he has a Thor hammer, his own hammer. And Thor stands up and they're like, we'll help you. Like, no, this is my fight. He's down to throw down again. Just like, even though he don't have his hammer, he's beat down. And this keeps happening through this book. It's just epic event after epic event. It just keeps building. And this is a book that really kept me into it and pumped up from start to finish. And I can't say, really, you can't really say that about a lot of books.
You can't say enough about this book.
Yes,
this is great.
It just builds, man. Just the epicness. It's just like layer after layer after layer, and it's really, really good. And I recommend it through and through.
To start off with this book, just in general through the whole story, up and probably till maybe the last, I'd say 2 issues, you know the book is going to get bad because gods are dying. When it comes to Asgard, Baldur's dead. Enchantress is dead. There's someone else.
Heimdall?
Yeah, Heimdall's dead, yeah.
Yep.
And, I mean, that's just, and Captain America and Iron Man are with him at this point. I think he even said the Rainbow Bridge was destroyed.
Yeah. Tony's looking at the little flakes. Like,
exactly, yeah. What is that? Yeah. And just right there, you know that things are bad. I mean, even by the title of the book, it's Ragnarok. If you didn't know, I didn't know what Ragnarok was at then. But if I'd have read it, I'd have just been mind blown at this time, back then. But just then, if you'd read Thor, you know, right there are 3 major characters to the core of his story, and you never watched them die reading the book. He just shows up and they're dead, and right then you know the story is how the seriousness of the story. It's got a real dark tone just right off the bat. I mean, and he is literally upset because when he shows up, they're getting ready to light Baldur's pyre, and just Thor is sad. And then after this, he realizes, okay, this is Ragnarok, and then he sends Tony and them, and right there, through the sadness, you see the Brotherhood. Them 3 are the Trinity for Marvel's Avengers, right there. And Tony and Steve don't want to go. They're arguing with him because, you know, they are a brotherhood. They're brothers in arms, and they're mad because he doesn't want them to go, and they're even coming at him, and he teleports them away. Just the opening of this book is great. We've just read it now, but you can see where the Brotherhood and these 3 lie. And what makes it even interesting is even when Thor comes back after all this, to not spoil anything, but with the confrontation with him and Tony afterwards, just reading this, going back and looking on that, just makes it that much more sweeter to me. And even through the book, I cannot think of Thor's brother's other name, but he's dead. The guy that became a farmer.
Yeah, I know.
And then when Thor goes there, it's even epic because it shows you how many trolls he had slaughtered. All the spears laying in the ground. Just everybody. Ragnarok is basically, you know, the end of Asgard. And it's everybody's warrior death. And even mythology, Marvel aside, this book really shows how Asgardians want to die. A warrior's death. And everybody does it in this book. And it's great.
Yeah. And everybody has that epic moment where he's meeting different people.
Yeah, everybody in this book gets
Yes.
their moment. And it's, besides the three mentioned that are dead, anybody, you know, you don't know their story. But everybody that dies from this point on, yes, gets their moment in this book, and it's great.
And Thor himself gets multiple moments that are just awesome in this book. And a couple of my, I'll kind of go over them, but one of my favorite is where he don't have his hammer and he's got the guy locked up, the giant. I think where he does the calls down the lightning.
Yeah.
Yes.
And he sits there, and it's kind of hard to say. You want to how deep can a guy reach? Well, Thor reaches deeper as the book goes on. And at this point, lightning just strikes this thing and just kills it and fries all Thor's clothes off. He don't even care. It's so great to see. And he even says, I think mentions in the book, like, I didn't know I could do that. Like, he didn't know how powerful he can call that, you know, he can control stuff like that, but he is a thunder god.
Yeah, he got used to relying on his hammer.
Yeah.
Yeah, you said that, I think about it because he takes the chains that have bound Fenris the wolf, his nephew, and they Loki and then bring them with them when they fight Thor. It even shows you Thor's resourcefulness because he knows, hey, I can use these later. And he chains his hammer up to them.
Yeah.
And is like usually like spinning them around, you know, taking everybody out. And it's great.
Yeah, there's so many parts in the book where Thor, it's almost like if it was a movie, it's where the theater would be dead quiet on some of these parts where Thor was doing some of this stuff, and then you have the reaction afterward, like when he does that. And another one is whenever he's going for the runes and he's talking to the spirit. What's the name of that character? The white ghost that's with him.
Oh, that's the Odin Force.
Yeah, the Odin Force. My bad. It's Odin Force, but it's in the spirit form. And he goes through these like trials that Odin went through. And my favorite part of the book, and everybody probably knew it coming in here, is whenever he tells him to rip out his eye and throw it in the well. And he does it, and he's like, you got to surpass what Odin did.
Yeah, you can't take Odin's path. You have to create your own.
And I'm telling you, when I was reading this, people probably looking at me weird because I was at lunch at work, and I got out of my car, and I was cheering. I was like, it was so badass because he rips out his other eye and throws it in there. And I'm like, how badass you got to be? He don't care. He wants, it's all on the line, and he ain't going to pick himself and run away. He's picking Asgard. He's
like I said, it proves Thor's selfishness through the whole book.
It's just, it blew my mind that he would do that. And I was like, because I always knew that he ripped out his eye. I didn't know he ripped out both eyes. And I read the book, and I was like, holy crap. And then he goes on to the next part, and it's where he has to hang himself because she's like, Odin hung himself from this tree. I forgot what the name of the tree was. For like 9 days. And he has to surpass that. So Thor kills himself by doing it and goes down to hell. And then it's just all the steps he takes. He does that and then he comes back. And then whenever it's all done, she gives him ravens on his shoulders and he can see all.
Yeah, he gets Odin's ravens.
Yes. Yeah. And he has Odin's ravens. He has the full everything. And that's when he confronts Loki. Man.
To continue on to what Evan the Great was saying, the Odin Force that took the form of the little boy, I didn't know the Odin Force could do that. I learned something in this book. The Odin Force is actually like a living thing. It can talk to you and it can take a form. And it can
I said, it's like almost like a phoenix force.
Yeah, and I honestly didn't know that until I read this book. I thought, you're just endowed with it. It was this source of power that you got. But I was wrong. This book, it's actually a living thing. Like it turns out it was the boy that they found, and Odin took him in as his son. I mean, Thor took him in as his son, and then when a battle's about to start, he's like, "Take my boy and go to safety and all this," and he's talking about how to be a king and to be a true king is to love your people like a father, and this boy, which is the Odin Force, is kind of helping him become the king that he needs to be.
It's guiding him towards the right path.
And then when he finds out that the boy is the Odin Force because the boy is killed, he finds out, the boy tells him, you know who I am. Think deep inside yourself. Who am I? He's like, you're the Odin Force. And then, he becomes this ghost looking figure and all this. And you get the boy tells him he left him because he isn't worthy of the Odin Force yet. He isn't ready for that. He needs to basically he has to walk the path that his father did to have the Odin Force, to be ready for what is to come. And so it's like a building block that's been placed for Thor to take to become what he needs to become to stop Ragnarok and to make it through this. And I learned that. I didn't know that the Odin Force could do that, and I thought that was a great part of the book. And then the Odin Force is also in the background during all his trials, like when he rips out his eye. The Odin Force is, to me, is a big part of why Thor knew to do this stuff. He'd be like, no, you can't follow the same path. You have to surpass it. Almost like your coach in the background. One more, come on, you can do it. He's the reason that Thor was able to take this path, and it played a huge part in it. And I like, just like Evan, I really enjoyed watching Thor surpass what it would actually take. And me myself, there's no way I can do that. Just no way. But watching him take this path, rip out his eye, throw it in the well, nothing happens. He's distraught and just, oh, why'd I do that? And he's like, and then the Odin Force tells him. He rips out his other eye and throws it in there. And then, the water comes up. He gets the knowledge. And then he tells him that he has to walk to where his father hung himself. And he's like, I can't even see. And he gets Odin's ravens. And he gets to see all. And I thought, for one, the artwork is awesome in this book. And during this part, the artwork doesn't let down. It was like they took an extra day. And I thought the artwork during this part was great. Then he goes and hangs himself. He goes to hell. But I was going to talk about a little bit about that tree. I knew about the tree, but I thought it was cool they described it a little bit. It's the tree that holds all the realms together.
It's the world tree.
Yeah, the world tree. And there's a squirrel that when they show up's dead. And that's when they know Ragnarok is, like, it's about to end.
Yeah, it's coming.
Because when the squirrel dies, what happens is the squirrel runs messages, and there's a dragon at the bottom. And the more they hate each other is the more they eat.
Yeah.
And they run messages between themselves. And the more they eat, the faster Ragnarok happens. And it's to the point that the squirrels died. And so it describes a little bit of that. And I thought that was cool. It gave the Norse mythology, which I love mythology, it gave you that feel. I thought this book gave you the Norse mythology feel more than any of the other books.
It's what makes it great, because it's not your typical comic book. It's not superheroes. It's myth.
It was like getting to read a Norse mythology book with awesome artwork. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed that about this book. It was a step away from the battle scene that's made the book so epic. Then they were able to step away from this epic battle.
Hold your attention.
Yes, and hold your attention in a totally different way, and you still love that part just as much because it's still got that layer after layer I was talking about earlier of the epicness. With ripping his eye out, you're like, oh, how do you do that? Rip his other one out. You know what I mean? I'm just like, oh. I mean, it just keeps doing them layers, but it goes away from the battle, and I thought that was so good.
What's great about these steps that you keep talking about, about hanging himself and walking to the tree, taking both of his eyes, is before each step, that's all about building his wisdom. And when he does it, he understands at first he has to take his eye. He understands that because that's what Odin did. And then he realizes that it's not going to work. And then the Odin Force is like, oh no, you cannot take the exact same path your father took. So he takes his other eye. And he's kneeling at the well calling himself a fool because it didn't work. And through every step, once he's done what he needs to do, it doesn't work for him automatically. And he's beating himself up over because he's trying to do what it takes and more. And it's not working. Because like you talk about how he doesn't want to go to the tree and crap. And then when he gets there, every step he fights the steps, and then when he does them, he realizes that he's doing the right thing. To the point where it's just like he stops complaining, and he realizes, I hate all this. It's what I need to do. And all that builds up to where he knows he has to bring Ragnarok.
Yeah.
And it's epic because, Thor's a hero. You're reading all this time, through this whole book, it's building up how selfless he is. How he's putting everybody else above himself. And then at the end, you're like, man, this is what a hero is. And then he's like, I have to bring Ragnarok to my people. And, we're typically, in your normal comic, that where a hero has to commit evil, it's not real technically an evil act, but heroes would hate somebody for this. Like when we talked about in Avengers Disassembled, where Miss Marvel hates Wanda for what she'd done to the team. No, the people of Asgard that are left, Volstagg, the Thin, Sif, they realize that this has to happen, and when he shows up, they know it. This is it. This is the end. Dying a glorious death. They know Thor has brought Ragnarok, and it's great because, like I said, this whole time you build up the selfishness of Thor, how he's a hero, and then he has to bring the end to everybody, and it's beautiful. I mean, I cannot. It's almost like you're getting two different stories through this book of 6 issues, and the first 4 issues, you've got your story of the battle going on with Loki, trying to stop Loki, and then when Thor realizes what he needs to do, it's great. For one, this entire time, when he kills Loki, he takes Loki's head with him. He's like, hey, you brought all this, you started all this, you're going to the end. You're going for the ride. And the entire time, Loki thinks he's mad.
Yeah.
He's like, I just wanted to rule Asgard, to shape it in my image. He's like, you're insane,
You want to
destroy our people, What are you? And Thor was like, basically Thor the entire time's like, shut up. You don't know what you're talking about. This is what needs to happen. And in the end, it shows you that, where you think, oh man, Thor's got to kill everybody. No, Thor is still being more selfless than ever at the end.
It's so good to watch Thor and Loki's reaction. Also, whenever he's got Loki's head, he's dragging him around, and just everything they say to each other, it's awesome. And another part, as I like when Thor basically is drilling Loki through this too about all the stupid things he's done, like having Fenris Wolf do this, and having Surtur basically I think he built the hammers for him.
Yep. Yeah.
He's like, you released that idiot, to build hammers. What are you thinking? Because he's a powerful villain, and to watch his reaction just going on through all this was just so epic. And then to watch the other Asgardians that were with him, like he said, to watch their reaction once they see, what Thor's got to do is just so awesome. Another part I like is whenever you find out how powerful Thor is after he comes back. I forgot the giant thing with the claws that comes at him, and he just puts his palm out and stops him.
Oh, Mangog, yeah.
Yeah, Mangog. He's just like, bam! I'm like, holy crap. That shows you right there that...
Yeah, when he goes to get Loki.
What you've gained is just superior to what he's ever had. And it's kind of weird to think, to me, in my mind, the most powerful version of Thor I've ever seen is him right there, and he don't have any eyes and no hammer, and it's just so great. Or does he have a hammer at that point again?
Yeah, he has.
He has a
hammer. Yeah, he has a hammer.
He has Surtur for it.
That's what I wanted to talk about. Is this is the most powerful Thor I've ever seen, and he can see through once he gets the all knowledge and all that. He's got his crows. He's got all this, but he's able to read the runes, and it gives him like an unbelievable amount of magic too, to the point that it astonishes Loki.
Yeah, Loki's very impressed.
Yeah, and he's using that, and he's got this, and he gets the Odin Force back. So he's got this like blue glow about him, and a lot like the artwork of Magneto from Avengers Disassembled. I thought when Thor gets this, he had that glow about him, that good artwork. You just knew he was like all powerful, and I just really, really liked that. Like through the artwork, they didn't even have to write it. You knew he was how powerful he's become, and then you also like Von Doom was touching on. You realize that Thor has to bring Ragnarok, and Thor comes to this realization because once he is able to see everything that his father did, you find out that this book's actually about Odin and what Odin's did to prepare for Ragnarok. Over all this time, Odin sent Thor, as Thor originally thought as a punishment or whatever. He sent Thor the Earth
as a mortal
because the ones that set above in the shadows, is that what they call them?
Yeah, the ones above in the shadows.
They actually feed off the life force of the gods. And they're the ones that do the Ragnarok cycle. The gods have to die so they can be reborn with the new life force so they can keep them alive. Odin knew about them. And the only way to hide someone's intent from them, God's intent, was to make them mortal. Like Thor has the mortal heart. So they couldn't predict what Thor were doing. They would just think, oh, well, Thor's just,
he's being Thor.
Yeah, he's this hammer-strong guy that's going to run into battle and play right into our hand.
Muscle-bound idiot.
Yeah, and it's not that way. And so you find out that the book's actually is centered around Odin and what Odin is set in play and set forth for Thor. And Thor takes it, and he has to do all these journeys. He has to bring Ragnarok to his people, which he finds Surtur with Loki's head. and makes a deal with Surtur. He's like, I will make a path for you to go right to the leftover gods. I will forge a path for you.
He sends him right to Asgard.
Yeah, so you can kill them all. Just fix my hammer. And so they make the deal, and he's like, and Surtur knows that, you know, a god's word.
The king of Asgard's word is a bond. Yeah,
is a bond. So he fixes his hammer, and so
it makes it powerful.
Yeah,
powerful
so he has Mjolnir
been.
back, and Loki's just going off on him. I didn't want to destroy everybody, blah blah blah. And so then, once he shows up, Lady Sif, by the way, who she doesn't have an arm,
yeah,
which is another epic part because she's like, this ain't gonna slow me down.
And she has Dragon Fang because Valkyrie dies.
Yeah, it's the book. We're hardly even touching on how great this book is because there's so much that we're forgetting, and it just, you know, there's so much to talk about. But he shows up during that, and I fast forward it. He leaves there to end Ragnarok, and he goes to the like the Fate Weavers. With, you know, they tell fate through the strings. They weave fate onto this like cloth, which, if you know Norse mythology and Greek mythology, they're in Greek too. That they have fate weavers like this, and it can't be erased. There's nothing you can do about it. And Loki's telling him, "What are you doing here?" Blah blah. And then the three fate weavers, they're there, and they're like, "You have no power here. You're blah blah blah." And then he tells him, "Well, look behind it." And there's the spindle. It's got one string that runs from top to bottom. It's just endless.
It's what creates all the fate.
Yeah, it's just endless. And then they realize that Thor can destroy that, and they're like, "No, don't do it. They gave us this power." And Thor destroys it, which erases fate, and and by erasing what fate's weaving and what they have wove, they take away the power source of the ones above. And
yeah, because they come down and try to stop him.
Yeah, they try to strike a deal. Yeah. You know, come be with us. Come be true power.
Yeah, this is what you're wanting, and he's like, no.
Yeah, he's like, no, and that just goes to show that he, like he was saying, how much he loves in people and how unselfish he is. He could have been all powerful, truly all powerful, and he turned it down for his people because he needed to be there for his people. He was their king, and he destroyed it and got rid of them, putting an end to Ragnarok. So even then, I thought the ending. You would read in the book, you're going to assume the ending's going to be an epic battle. No,
I know it's not.
The ending is perfect because it isn't what you thought it would be. And it's just, it plays into the ending so well, and I couldn't be happier.
Yeah, what's great about the book is, you know, you talk about how Odin had made Thor mortal, which takes place before the start of Thor in comics in general.
Yep.
What makes this story great is it wraps up that everything Thor has done in the last 4 decades of comics have been for this moment, to teach him what he needs to learn to stop the cycle of Ragnarok. Like they relate that, you know, Ragnarok's a cycle. It happens all the time. Thor even talks about how he's lived through them, blah, 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 blah. But each cycle's different, and you know that's where it comes into play, where he has to start this Ragnarok, and then that's where he realizes this is why Odin sent me to Earth, is to learn this wisdom, learn how to love mortals, and that way I can end all this. That's what's great is this book ties up that this whole Thor had been around for 40 years in comics, and it wraps up that all this has led up to this moment. Everything, all his battles, all his brotherhoods with the Avengers, all the team-ups he's ever had, all the villains he's ever fought, it's for this moment. And I can't think of any other time in comics where a series as a whole has meant to the character as much as it has in this moment. And Thor comes back later on. I mean, it even tells you at the later book, you know, that he says he's going to sleep for now, and then he comes back. But it's great that at this time where comics have changed and they get deeper in meaning and they start taking all this other crap, that I can't tell you who wrote this book at the time, but that they took 40 years worth of Thor stories and made it mean something like this, and it's great. I mean, to know that, all the battles, all the life lessons have, you know, came to this. And even after this, I brought up that there's all these one-shots that if you can find after this, read them online or whatever, almost, they take place before the Thor comic even started. His life as a mortal, all the rage that he felt for Odin, you know, throwing him to Earth, making him mortal, taking his hammer from him. But all those moments add up to this, and it's great.
Yeah, it's I agree 100%. How it just went through, took everything you ever learned about Thor and just made it something. The book overall, if I had to grade it, and this might just because I just read it, it is probably one of the top 5 books series I have ever read.
I definitely say it's one of the top 2 Thor stories ever.
Yeah, hands down.
Man,
We've got so wrapped up in just the story itself. Let's talk about Beta Ray Bill. We love Beta Ray Bill.
Talk about
And his entrance into this story is epic. He's sitting there, he fights Ranarok, whatever his name is. Odin's at his weakest, Volstagg and Sith are trying to tell him that. And he's fighting Fenrir, and his Fenris Wolf shows up, and he's massive. And then all of a sudden, boom, Beta Ray Bill just comes and lays him out. And that's the end of that issue. Well, the next issue, it starts at that point. He's not laid out yet, and Beta Ray Bill's just wailing on him. And what's great is he looks at all the troll stuff around, and he's like, "Who's next?
How about that?
You really want some of this?" And they all run.
Yeah.
And it's just to give somebody like Beta Ray Bill that type of attitude is awesome. And his character plays really well in this. If you don't know anything about Beta Ray Bill, back in the mid-early 80s, he had fought Thor hand-to-hand. Was Thor's equal. Odin seen how great and wise he was and made him his own hammer, equal to Thor's, called Stormbreaker. For all purposes, he is just as powerful as Thor, and well, until this book. But they really do a great job with him in this book because someone has to rule Asgard, and Thor knows that he's worthy of it. He even believes Odin would make Beta Ray Bill king of Asgard.
Yeah, he sees him as a brother.
Exactly,
Yeah.
and he does. And basically, Beta Ray Bill has to lead what's left of the 9 worlds against Thor, bringing Ragnarok. And you think, man, when you're reading it, you don't want to see that because they're brothers. And then, no, he does the exact same thing to Beta Ray Bill as he does a Cap and Iron Man at the beginning of this book. He teleports him away. And Beta Ray Bill doesn't want to do it. He wants to die with them. But by what I understand by reading this, that he wouldn't be able to come back because he's not Asgardian.
Yeah.
And it's sad because you can tell the emotion in Beta Ray Bill because he hates it, he doesn't want to do it, and then in the end he understands. And that just shows you how close and how well him and Thor know each other.
He played his part.
Exactly.
Up to that point.
He knew that he was being used.
Yeah.
So that about wraps up our review on Thor Ragnarok. I give it 10 out of 10.
10 out of 10.
12 out of 10.
Damn, you are great. Highly recommend it. It's in a trade paperback. I personally would like to own these books. I've been looking on eBay. By now, they're going anywhere from like 60 to 90 bucks, which is a little pricey for me. But if I had the money, I'd definitely fork it out for these, add them to my collection. Before we sign off, I got a question off of Twitter. At DM Leviathan, if you're watching this, man, you're awesome. I like chatting to you about Pathfinder and D&D. He brought up a question last night about bringing comics, particularly the X-Men, to like an RPG setting. And got to reading what he had wrote. Later on, he said he wanted to bring like arcades like Murder World to make it into a Pathfinder game. I thought, man, that's brilliant. And then he had said, okay, well, if you could have X-Men as your Pathfinder group, what would they be? That's all. I was like, oh, so I answered, well, Magic would be my wizard.
Yes.
Gambit would be my rogue.
Yeah.
I had Colossus as a paladin. Wolverine as my barbarian cross-class ranger. And then I had Angel as a cleric because off and on Angel has been able to heal. And then I replied that what would also be great is between Magic and Angel going back and forth between Darkchild and Archangel to give you a little of internal conflict within the group at times. So my question is to you, what group of X-Men would you make into Pathfinder characters? And what classes would they be? Now, typically when we play, we have a group of 4 or 5. So try to keep it wrapped up within there.
I'll let you start, Evan. The group.
And you being a big X-Men fan,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
I figured you'd really like this.
Man, this is so great. It's the best question almost anybody can ask. But if I had to sit down and actually think about it and figure out which ones I would go with, one similarity would be the rogue class would definitely be Gambit. For those who don't know, I'll give you a little history. Gambit is a thief. He's an awesome X-Men character, but he's a thief. And he has a lot of agility.
And a ladies' man.
Yeah, he's a ladies' man. He's a thief. He's got cards for crying out loud that he can charge up and throw, but he has great agility, great stealth. Everything that is about a rogue would fit directly right into Gambit.
Could you imagine that if he's sitting there trying to cheat at a table and things go bad and he just like takes his cards and throws them
He could
just to get away?
I mean, just take your cards, charge them up, throw them. Gambit would definitely be my rogue. This
Hey,
one,
no, you don't have to follow me.
okay. This one might differ a little bit, but I'm going. I guess I would have to go way back to asshole Cyclops. For most people don't like Cyclops nowadays, but the beginning Cyclops is a great leader, and I would almost pick him as a paladin then, because he does what the X-Men should do. He
I see that he's for the mutants.
Yes,
You know,
he's for the
everything
mutants,
for the mutants.
100% at that point.
Protect them at all costs. I see that.
Another thing that would be a paladin, which just might I gotta go there, would be Magneto.
Magneto
Because-
is my paladin.
Well, okay, yeah.
Because-
If you're doing a group,
Yeah,
of
if I do it like that, and people that know
It's a good
Magneto would know what I'm
Yeah.
talking about, is he's kind of villainous, but the fact that he has I wouldn't call him oath, but he has the guide that he goes by, like the guidelines, and he sticks to them. But anyway, that'd be interesting. But
that's interesting because as long as we've played, a paladin is based on his own belief system.
Yes.
And how he sees things. So just because a paladin does one thing one way doesn't mean all paladins have to do things that way. So yeah.
So that'd be just an offshoot, kind of good idea for you. But Cyclops would definitely be my paladin character in that aspect. But I'll probably go with a couple more here. An easy one to me would be a barbarian would have to be Wolverine. Just because of the rage he goes in and the flurries he goes on. Magic could be a good sorcerer type.
Give me your own team.
Yeah.
Give me your own team.
If I had to do I'm trying to think here. If I had to do like a fighter character, I'm trying to think who I would go with. Thinking right here on the spot. Let me think here. Another sorcerer character, it would be. I would say a sorcerer character because it kind of fits in. It had to be a theme. Would be Iceman. He could do ice spells. You kind of bring him in.
I could see that, like
And
an elementalist.
And the reason I say that is because in Pathfinder and D&D, a sorcerer has power in them, which would be Iceman, and his ability would be to create ice and blast and all that. Plus, he's one of my favorite characters, and I think he would really fit into that.
I really like that.
That aspect.
That's interesting.
Still a lot of stuff I'm thinking of.
I'm just going to keep going through now because I already picked Gambit as a rogue. We're going to have two rogues in this group because I think Nightcrawler fits the rogue.
Oh,
That's
yeah,
my
that's
rogue.
really good. Yeah.
That's
Okay,
my rogue.
okay, we need to cut you off. So you're
me
going
have
to
some.
get in here. Yeah.
We'll start off. My leader of the group is my fighter, is the newer version of Cyclops. The hard, still good leader, leads his people, but he's not scared to cross that line.
I like that.
Yeah.
He's my fighter. My rogue is Nightcrawler. He's your in and out guy. If you can't ask for someone better for your in and out guy. My sorcerer is Storm.
Ooh,
She doesn't do
yeah, I
magic,
like that.
but the lightning. That's my sorcerer.
Or would you take her kind of like a druid in a way then?
I thought of druid.
Because storms and whatnot. There's a old class in Faroon that is like Storm Lord or something like that, or druid.
Yeah, I mean, she could fit. I mean, but she would be in it for this video. We'll say sorcerer though, just kind of your generic what you always see in a group. And then, of course, I think if you don't put Wolverine as a barbarian, he's your brawler. He has to be. I think he should be in almost everybody's group.
Yeah.
He would be my brawler, and my out of left field, someone I think would be cool because almost every group that you play with, they have that character that don't fit, but they fit out of left field. Dazzler would be my bard.
Oh, I like that. That's
yeah.
good.
That would be
good one.
That would be my group.
Talking about Wolverine and Cyclops. You can make Jean Grey a wizard, for
Yes.
being telekinetic
Yeah.
and whatnot. She can be like master of the unseen hand.
When it comes to mutant powers, you know, you can almost fit anybody.
But yeah, it's very, very
It's
true. But
interesting.
what's good, you do that, you have Cyclops and Wolverine, you've got that love triangle
Yep.
over there. That
Yeah.
can cause you some crazy stuff, too.
I got one more wild one, and then I'll put together. Now to say my final, I guess we'll go 4 that I would pick. My wild one that people probably might
Man,
not
I think this is
understand.
like 5 or 6 for
Yeah.
him, not 4.
Well, I'm going to pick 4 of them. We're going
I
to make
wanted
a group after
Magneto,
this.
but he picked him.
But I think a great wizard character would be Beast. Because
Alchemist.
yeah, or an alchemist, because he's always into stuff. He's smart. He's reading on. He studies every field of mutant power there would be. So he would do the same thing if he was back in. I can't say back in the day because it ain't real, but he would research stuff. But alchemist would be a really good one that he can go with.
Talk about rogues, Shadowcat.
Yeah, Shadowcat would be awesome.
And with her little animal companion, Lockheed, you know.
But I'm gonna go. My group of 4 would probably be, or the ones I talked about so far would be. You always need. Let's see. We're gonna go over the basics. You need a fighter type. You need a rogue. You need I guess you could say a tanky character.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
And like a wizard. So or a wizard sorcerer. So if I had to pick my group, it would be Nightcrawler as my rogue. It would be Iceman as my sorcerer. It would be Wolverine as my barbarian. It would be Cyclops as my paladin. What about
Basically,
you?
keeping your same team there.
Yeah, the only other person that I could possibly add in is I was wanting to put Magneto as the newer Magneto as my paladin. But Evan the Great kind of touched on that,
Yeah.
so I wanted to pick a little bit different group, and I feel like all of us should have Wolverine, especially
Yeah.
Wolverine's in every book.
Yeah,
so he should be in every group.
He's the mutant.
And
staple.
he's the perfect barbarian. I couldn't think of anybody.
Well, see, that's why I went Barbarian Range, because he's also a tracker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, so.
Well, barbarians can,
Well,
they're from the wild, and,
True.
so a lot of that fits his character, and I just can't see anybody else playing that.
Yeah. Well, I was going with
Warpath would be a good ranger.
yeah, someone even answered Warpath on the Twitter. But I went with the Ranger because also, you know how you always see Wolverine with wolves every now and then.
You know he does have arch enemies too.
Yeah. That's very, very true right there.
He
I'm the
does get
favorite
plus-
enemy,
he does get
Sabertooth,
plus
Silver
ones.
Samurai, Omega
It's
Red.
Sabertooth.
And I guess our big enemy, I guess we'd all agree, probably Apocalypse.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
But at DM Leviathan on Twitter, follow him. Great dude, great question. Hope you like the answers we get this. We're the Villains of Man. Justin Von Doom, he's Hero Man, and the Great. Follow us on Twitter, like us on Facebook, and watch this on YouTube. We will catch you later.